Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have quite an interesting demonstration that I'm going to give you. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes, let everyone else get in. Before that, I just want to make sure that everyone's aware, there's the Extract Summits coming up. If you're interested in those, go to the Extract website and you'll see all the details there. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end as well. So I'm just going to let a few more people join in and we'll get started right on 3 o'clock. I need to try and get my chat to work again. Bear with me. Well, my YouTube chat doesn't want to work. Oh well, never mind. Oh well, I'll just go without that. It'll be fine. I don't need this. So we're going to talk about a few things today, specifically the auto-extract and the extract capabilities of the Zyte API. But what I want to do is I want to show you a few different ways that you can do this and the power of it compared to having to write all your own HTML selectors, etc., which is obviously not ideal and not what we want to do. So what I've got here is, we'll go to my code, and if I make this a bit bigger on the screen, what I've got here is a standard sort of scrapey project. This is a very simple spider. I'll show you my settings. So I'm using the Zyte API here. So I've got that add-on enabled, and I'm pulling my API key from my environment in my shell. So what this is going to do is, when I run this, it's just going to go to this page here, which is a list page. It's a product list page of graphics cards. So the reason why I started to do this was because I decided that with the new release of the AMD graphics card, because I'm a Linux user, I prefer to use AMD graphics cards, I would have a look around some of the information, and I ended up going down massive rabbit holes and ended up not actually buying a graphics card at all. I bought a different PC case. Well, there you go, a whole new thing. So that's why I led me to this site. And what I want to do here is I want to show you, we're writing selectors for this, and this is a very easy way to do this, but this is only 3 data points. And also this is not that useful because we're not going into the individual product pages. So what I want to do is, if I run this here, I'll make this a bit bigger in a second. I've got my text sizes are a bit all over the place. We can see, I know this is probably quite small on the screen, but this isn't relevant at the moment. But you can see we're pulling the product list pages off, or the product information off of the list page, and this is fine. But we can do this a much easier way using the Zyte API. I'm already using it to access the website. I'm already using it for all of that capability. So why don't I carry on and use it to do the auto extract? If I come back to my Chrome here, you can see here's a few different data types that we can automatically extract. And the way that this works is that, because obviously these are very common data points, right? Common data points, products, product lists, product navigation, articles, etc., etc. Because this is so common, right? It made sense for us that we were able to extract this information using very, very small but highly trained AI models. It's more like machine learning, really. But what this allows us to do is just to tell the Zyte API that this is a product page. Give me the expected data points back as JSON. And that's become very powerful because these points are so common. We actually end up being able to extract product list, products, navigation, and articles and job postings very, very quickly and very efficiently, meaning only a tiny up increase in cost compared to the time taken to write the selectors. And obviously it works across all product pages, and it will tell you, and you'll see the results that will come back in a minute. Now obviously this might not capture everything. So we'll look at, once I've gone through this example, we'll look at our custom attributes, which is how we can tell the API that we want to reach out to a wider LLM and pass the information in there and actually ask it to give us data back and specify those points. And I'll be doing that in this as well. So let's go back to my code, and we're going to get rid of this because we are not going to be passing the HTML ourselves, because I mean, that would just take forever. You have to look through all the selectors on the page, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to get rid of this, and we'll just leave it like this for now. So this is a very straightforward, like standard spider. But what we need to do here is that this start URLs is the basic way that Scrapy is going to do this. So we are going to need to change this slightly, because when we make the first request to this page, we want to pass in some extra parameters into the request that goes to the Zyte API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to go yield out, and we're going to yield out a Scrapy request, scrapy.request. And within this, we're going to give it the URL, which is this, because we want it to go to this page. Now, this is just doing exactly the same thing as this at the moment. But instead of just this, we want to add in some parameters. So we're going to add in our meta parameters, which is going to be our Zyte API automap. And this is going to be equal to another dictionary. And we're going to specify here that this is a product list. And this is true, like so. Oh, we've got too many of these. Missed out the initial part of the function. And there we go. So now we can yield this out. Like this. Okay. So indent that. So now when Scrapy runs, it's going to run this, and it's going to yield out a request for this URL as a product list. Now, this is going to need to come back and have a callback mechanism, a callback function, so it knows where that data is going to be when we do it. So I'm going to add this in here, and it's going to be a callback, and I'm going to call this self.parseList. I'd recommend when you're writing parsing functions in Scrapy to not use the default parse and to override it. And write your own ones. It's just much neater and tidier, and you'll find that you'll be better off that way. You won't get loads of LSP errors as well. So let's go ahead and see what actually comes back from this. So we can print out the raw API response. So what I'm going to do is just print it out, and we'll do response, and it's raw API response, like so. And I think I need to say, let's check this in a second, actually. Product list. We'll check this in the docs. So let's go back to the documentation, and you'll see where this is. So I'm on product list. So if I click on this, it will give me some reference here, and it'll tell me what it's going to do, like this. And it'll say you get a product list in the response. So that should work. Okay, this is always my favorite part, when I go ahead and run it and I've done something wrong. Everyone's already shouting at the screen. I do this pretty much on the fly. I don't, I do it a little bit beforehand, but this is how for figuring it out. Right, so I know this is really small. Let me try and make it a bit bigger. You can see here that this is our response. And it has, inside it, we've got the breadcrumbs, and we've got all of the product information. Now, this is exactly pretty much exactly, you can just about see it in here, it's kind of small, I know. This is exactly what I was actually asking for before, but I was coding it out. So you can see right away that instead of using selectors, and we just use this instead, asking for the product list, that we've got the JSON data back from the response from the API. So this is already saving us a ton of time. So what we're looking at now is effectively doing what I had before with the selectors, but much easier and much quicker. And what we can actually do now instead is, as well, because we've got this API response, which is obviously a JSON response, we can loop through it and we can get the URLs from that response. So if I was to change this parse list function, and instead of printing out the raw API response, we will do this instead. We'll call this, I think it's going to be, I need to just check the response, because we want to go, where are we in? It's called URL. Okay, cool. So let's say that our products is going to be the response dot raw API response product list. We'll just do this so it's a tad neater, like so. And then we can loop through. So we'll do for item in product, and it's going to be products because this is the key, I think, that's here. We'll check this in just a second to make sure that I'm right. We'll do print item, and I think this is going to have the key of URL in it, like so. Let's get rid of that there. So let's bring this back up, and we should now, when we run this, we should just loop through and get a load of URLs back printed out into our terminal. If I printed them, I did. There we go. So now I've got a list of URLs, and these are all the products that were on that page. So now, of course, for each of these, we can create a scrapey request. Instead of just printing the URL, we can create a scrapey request. And obviously with this request, instead of a product list, we are going to do a product. I need to be on this page. We're going to do this instead. Oh, here's the output. Right. We can check that. So we're going to call for a product instead. And this is going to return the product data schema here, which is all of these points that it's going to try and fill in for us. And we'll see that come through in just a second. So let's go ahead and create that, that function here. So instead of printing these, we're going to yield, and we're going to do another scrapey.request. And the URL is going to be equal to the item URL, which is what we just printed out, which we could see. And now we want to add in our meta again. And this is going to be our Zyte API auto map. And within this, we want product list. So product, sorry. True, like so. Save this. And again, we want our callback function. So in here, our callback, and I'm going to create this now, and I'm just going to call this parse item, like that. And now I'm going to create this function here. Self, and we on the response. And what we'll do now is instead of printing it, we're going to yield it out, and we'll yield out. I think yield will work because this is going to be a dictionary. We'll double check. We'll do our response dot raw API response, and I'll ask for the product key. I think that's the right one. Let me just double check. That should give us the information that we want out here. So again, very straightforward. We are creating one request for this, asking for a product list. Then we're going to utilize that product list here, and we're going to get the URLs, and we're going to create a load of scrapey requests. And obviously, because scrapey is going to run asynchronously, we'll see a lot of these come up straight away. So let's go ahead and run this. Clear that up. It might take a little second to get going because obviously every time we do this, we're creating a new set of requests through the API. So it takes a second to warm up. Once it gets going, that time will drastically reduce because, you know, behind the scenes, we're utilizing different sessions and everything like that. So we can see that I'm getting a load of data back. And this is the JSON response. Like it's going through and it's chunking through, and we can see, you know, this is a lot of information. Now, this is way too much information for me. You can see this is all formatted HTML. It's still going through, right? So what I want to do is I really want to think about, well, out of these data points that I've got, which ones do I actually want? And we're going to create an item for that, an item class within our Scrapy project. I want to show you kind of a neat way that you can take the raw product response from the Zyte API in Scrapy, and you can load it into a item that we're going to create. And I'm going to do something a bit different with the items because I'm not going to use Scrapy items. So I'm going to use attrs, and Scrapy has supported attrs for a couple of versions now, I think. So we're going to do from attrs, we're going to import in define. Now, if you've never used attrs before, it's basically this is very similar to data classes, and in turn quite similar to Pydantic, although it does a lot less, but that's by design. And in fact, the people that originally wrote attrs helped the Python Foundation with making their own data classes. I really like it as a package. I think it's great, and I really like the fact that it integrates into Scrapy. It just comes with it. You don't need to install it or anything like that. And we're also going to do from typing, we're going to import optional because we're going to need to handle some of the cases where, you know, the fields don't exist for whatever reason. So instead of this being a Scrapy item class, we'll call this something else as well. There we go. And we need to just decorate this. So this is how you do it with Mac key. Sorry, there we go. Define. And I'm going to make this keyword only is true. I think this just helps us putting the information into these fields. So now we need to decide what information that we actually want from this. Now, this is obviously up to you, and depending on the site that you're scraping and the information that's coming back. But you would want to look through this. I've lost it now. Was this the response? Oh, I've gone. Let me get it back. There we go. So you want to look through these fields and understand which one of these fields that you want and which ones are relevant to the information to the page that you're pulling in. Now, I've already done this. This is one of the things I did do ahead of time because I don't want to sit there and just, you know, type out a load of class fields. So this is what I've decided that I want. And I'm doing it like this just so it's kind of neat and, you know, handled well. So I know exactly what we're looking at. We're pulling just a few data points from the page. But obviously, as we saw in my raw output from my terminal, there was a lot of information there. So, you know, all of this stuff. So I'm just going to chop it right down. So we're going to come back to our spider, and we're going to pull in our product here. So we want to do from items. We're going to import in our graphics item. And I'm going to come down here. And we need to actually do one more thing because at the moment we're going to try and put too much information into our fields. So this is one of the things that I came across that I needed to figure out how to do. And I ended up using a separate library, and it's called cattrs or cattrs. And what that does is it just helps you serialize and marshal into your item. I don't actually know if this is a common thing, but this worked for me. So I just left it in and I included it. So hopefully it works for you as well and everything that you want to do. So from cattrs, we're going to import in structure. And what this is going to do is it's just going to give us a really easy way to basically chuck all of the response JSON, all of those fields, everything that comes back from the API, all of the mass loads of data. And we're just going to say, hey, this is our item. Just put in these ones that match, please, and just dump the rest. And I do this quite a lot. I've done it a lot in my own code with other things like Pydantic, and I've done it this way. It seems to work well for me. So what we'll do is instead of this here, we're going to say that our product instance is going to equal to, and we do structure, and we say, you know, what information are we going to be giving cattrs? And what do we want to do with it? So obviously we want to handle it. We want to hand it the raw API response. So raw API response like this, and it was product. And then we want to tell it where it's going to go. Now, obviously it's going to go into the graphics item. I think it's like this. And now, if I yield out this product instance, save, let's go ahead and see if that works. And what we get back now hopefully should be much neater and tidier. So I'm going to clear this up, figure this out again. I need to change my text size. The terminal text is too small. Let's see what happens. Not sure if I've done that last bit right. I can't remember the parameters that are required. When I'm demoing, I turn all of the LSP stuff off because when you zoom in, it gets right in the way. Cool, it's working. So I'm going to stop this. And we can see right here, here's our item. And we've got the name, price, currency, availability, the SKU, the size, which is, a relevant piece of information, especially if you're looking at 9060s, you don't want to buy an 8 GB card, and the URL. These are the data points that I specified. And we have this neatly now in our attrs item. And this will output in any way, and it handles it in the same way in Scrapiers as it normally would. So we could do output and we could do items.json. We could let it run, and it's going to go ahead and create that JSON file. So I'll let it do that whilst we talk a little bit about the next thing, which is the custom attributes. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit up custom attributes. And this is quite an interesting way of doing things. And there's a few things about this that I really like, and a couple that I'm not so sure about, but on the whole, it is very powerful. And it does give you a lot of flexibility and a lot of options that are very, very easy to put in. So we're not talking about having to change a load of code or write different parts to your spiders. We're simply going to have a very easy way to add in, that we need a few more bits of information, right? So when I'm saying a few more bits of information, if we go back to our spider, which I've lost over here, so it's still running. So if we look, it's finished, fantastic. So let's open up the items.json file. Move this out of the way, shrink my text back down. I've got this add-on here which just kind of like neatens it all up for you and kind of shows you. So this is just a kind of a visual representation of the JSON. You can see it just above my head there. So this is just the first one. Now, one of the things that we'll notice if we look at some of these products is that we've got this information, but we could be missing pieces. So we could be like, we don't have the brand, for example, or, in some cases we don't have, you could be missing any piece of information, right? So if we look at the URLs, it's cut off there. If you look at the URL, they've almost all got this boost frequency, right? This megahertz boost, but that's not in this information anywhere. It's not in the schema. It's not in part of it. So we would want to add that in as like as an extra piece of information that we could be, interested in. But not all of them have it. So you see we've got this here, which is why on my item over here, we're going to use optional again. So let's add the thing into our, let's add the field into our item. So let's put this in here. So I'm going to call this megahertz boost, and I'm going to say this is an optional and it's an integer. So when I'm saying integer is because when we look at our JSON, we don't want to pull out TBC. We just want nothing if it doesn't exist, right? And this could be a decision based on how you want to run your project or what information you're after. So it's just one way, a different way of handling it. So I want to pull this number here, relevant to these products. All right, I'll get rid of this. I'll just get VS Code stop complaining at me. So let's close this. So what we want to do, well, when we're calling our meta here, we can add in custom information. So I'm going to come back to the documentation. And this is not the clearest of examples, but I will show you, how it works. Basically, what you state is you have a custom attribute, and then you say what value you want and the type, and then you can give it a natural language of the information that you're after. And how this works behind the scenes is we take the information from the web page and we send that off, chop it down as much as we can, and we send that to an LLM, and then we send your description, which is your natural language prompt, and we get that back that way. Now, obviously, this does take more compute, so it costs a little bit more, but this could be very valuable to you if you are needing a very specific piece of information. one of the most common use cases, is where products have information in the title but nowhere else on the page. So you need to use, excuse me, you need to use something like the LLM to separate that out and give you that as a field. You can also, as you can see here, ask for summaries and things like that. But one thing I would say is, and it's in the documentation somewhere here, is don't ask it to do too much. Don't ask it for like mathematics and things like that. Do that separately, because otherwise you're just going to waste time on compute that you don't need to do. But it's definitely worth having a go and working with and seeing if it fits into your use case. I found some great use cases for it so far, and I think it is very powerful. So what we're going to do is underneath our product here, under our Zyte API auto map, is we're going to say, hey, we want custom attributes. Attributes, like so. And this is a dictionary as well, or a JSON field. Now we want to say our type, and this is what we're expecting. So this is why I put integer into my item, because this is an integer. It's a whole number figure of a boost number. And then we can give it the description. Now, this is basically prompting, so you might need to mess around and figure out what's the best for you and what works. I think I only went through a couple of iterations for this, and I think it's just like the megahertz of the megahertz boost figure of the product. And this seemed pretty reliable to me. And that's it. That's all we need to do. The only thing that's going to change, though, is that where this information comes back in the response. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this for a second here, and we're going to comment this out and this out, and we are going to print the raw response like so. I think that will work. I'm going to save this, and we're going to open up our terminal, and we're going to run the code and run the spider again. I'm not going to, actually I'm going to cancel it because I don't want it to go output. And we'll let this go ahead and run through a couple of requests. Okay, I've got an error. Did I spell custom attributes wrong? I think I did. What have I done? Bear with me. Custom attributes. I've missed out the name. So I got ahead of myself here. So what this is I should have specified the name of the field right first. Because without this, it doesn't know how to return what you're asking for. Right? So this is what I missed out. Like so. And this should be indented. In fact, we can run format. Cool. So let me try that again. You need to give it a name of the field, because obviously you can have multiple fields. That was one of the things I wanted to mention. So hopefully this should work now, unless I've done something wrong again. Usually typing something wrong. That's pretty much standard. That's how I work, really. I have to keep going through fixing things that I've mistyped. So you can see we're doing this asynchronously, right? That should be fine. So I'm going to cancel this, and we can see, and you can't really, let me find, yeah, custom attribute. I know this is small. Let me make this bigger so we can see. So what we've got is at the end of our response from the API, we have our custom attributes here, and it gives us the field name that we specified, which I missed the first time, which is why I complained, because it's like, where do you want me to give you this information? You missed it. And then the number. Now I asked for an integer, which is why it's an integer there. And then it tells you about the tokens and everything. Now what this means is that this isn't within the product response, because it can't be in there, because it's totally separate. So the product response is done by one thing, this is handled by another. So we are getting this information, but we need to do a little bit of moving around so we can put it in the right place for to add to our product. So when we actually run the code, we get the information back out where we want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to comment these, put these back in, and I'm going to say we're going to do a try statement, because, and I don't know if this is the best way. I didn't like the handling it this way, but this is kind of what I came up with. So because it doesn't always exist, right? I call this product instance. What I've decided to do is I'm going to say create my product instance here. And I know that this isn't going to fail, because we're always going to get this information back. And if it does, it'll be handled through Scrapy's error handling, because it'll be a bad response. What we're going to do then is we're going to try and add this information to the megahertz boost field. And if there's a key error, which we'll get a key error if it doesn't exist in our response, I'm just going to set it to 0. Now, how you want to handle this is definitely, up to you, because I'm not a massive fan of try and except in Python. I try not to use it whenever I can. I don't like it. I'd rather errors as values, but this is what I've got for this demo. So just keep that in mind, that this possibly isn't the best way of handling this, and you might want to handle this your own way, however you need to, based on your project and your experience. But this is going to work. So I'm going to save this. We're going to clear this up, and I'm going to make everything huge again, and we're going to run it, and we'll see that we should now have this field in our response. Oh, start request is deprecated as well. Keep that in mind. Cool, it's working. So you can see now, here's our item, and it has the megahertz boost in this. So we're added in. You've used the custom attributes to add in a field, which isn't going to be picked up by the standard product schema, but is going to be on the page available somewhere that we can utilize the custom attributes, that LLM, to go out and find that information for us. And it's all returned within the same API response, but it just comes in its own separate section at the bottom. Now, if I come back to our code, I just come back here. When we're making this request, this section here is what defines the custom attribute. So this could be, you could have multiple ones in here. You could ask for more information on the page. You could ask for a sentiment. You can ask for a Boolean of, does this product have this? And it will give you true or false. In my experience so far, it's been very powerful, and it's really useful to have that, just that little bit extra to be able to pass that information, rather than having to, send a whole load of extra data to an LLM and get it to do it for you and then return it back. And this is all done within one API call. So this is one Scrapy request yielded, right? And this is what you need to do. The whole magic of everything is happening within this. All I've got here is, I've just my start requests where I'm saying this is a product list. If you, however you get your URLs that you want to scrape is fine. And this is literally the main part that you need. So I think what we're going to do is I'll just, I'll remove the items JSON file, and we'll just run this, and we'll just, get all of the product information, and we'll just have a quick look at it. So we'll do Scrapy, and we'll run it again against our items, and we'll just let this go through. Now, whilst this is running, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube. I got distracted then by looking at that. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So we're using the Extract YouTube channel a lot more. There's going to be loads of stuff on here. We're going to be making content specifically for it. We're going to be doing live streams, live coding, everything like that's going to be coming up. So to make sure that you don't miss any of it, I'd really appreciate it if you just hit subscribe. That makes a lot of difference to us. And also make sure you'll come and hang out in the Discord, and the next week's event will be in Discord. It's going to be slightly different, but I think you'll enjoy it. So make sure you keep your eyes open for that. That will be run there. We've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline that we're planning on doing, me and my team. So, your participation would be, greatly appreciated. And that, there's lots of cool stuff coming up. So make sure you hang around for that. So this is all run. We've got everything here. So I'm going to go again and open up my items. .json file. Shouldn't really call it items.json, that's bad. And we'll just make this a little bit smaller. And we'll open up this handy dandy thing. And we can see now that we have this megahertz boost field in our JSON with the information, which hopefully is right. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to point out with this project that would need adjusting if you were doing this for, actual, checking out information and whatever. So some of these have none of that information in, but this product probably does have a boost of some description, so you might want to do this differently. The only other thing that I noticed was in certain cases where the product isn't available, we have put a price of $99,999, which is not correct. So this would need some investigation, and we'd also want to handle that in some way. But the rest of the information I checked through is correct and is very, useful, and has been all generated by our ML model and then the megahertz boost by the LLM at the end. So that's going to do it for this one. There's a bit more coding, a bit more hands-on. This is kind of what we want to get to. Hopefully you've got some good information from this. Like I said, it'd be great if you could subscribe to this channel and come make sure you're in the Discord. Keep your eyes open for next week's event, which will be slightly different, and that will be in Discord, so you'll get plenty of notifications for that. If you've got any questions about what we've done specifically today, slam them in the Discord. I'll be in there, or one of my team, or one of Zyte will be in there, and we can help answer questions for you right away. Not a problem. We love talking about this sort of stuff. We love doing this. This is what we do every day. We love it. So come and talk to us about it. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And yeah, look forward to seeing you again live on here or live in Discord. Thank you very much.